I would like to request Dr. Bhatia to please come on the stage. He is the conference chairman and managing director of Astron Hospital, Gurgaon. So please give a big hand for him.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think by the time they are doing the presentation, let me set the context, because after practically a master class by Dr. Chandrasekhar on hospital planning and infrastructure, the next topic that has been thought of is an entirely different and little away from the infrastructure and planning that we are talking about, little offbeat. In fact, when Manish discussed with me about this particular topic, so I in fact told him, I said, we are talking about infrastructure, we are talking about planning. How suddenly you are putting across one topic, which is absolutely more of a working on a thought process rather than on the planning exercise. So he said, sir, as conference chairman, you have to speak something different. So let's talk about something else than just the hardcore infrastructure planning. And while we are talking this particular topic, as we are always discussing on the infrastructure part of it, as we are working on the availability of infrastructure in the healthcare scenario of the country, we are always talking about a demand supply gap. So when we have the presentation, I think this becomes a trigger to talk, and once that's not there, you feel that there is a vacuum in how you are going to speak until one is talking about the presentation. Anyway, I was just discussing about the problem statement, that where is the issue, why we are discussing this problem today. We are discussing about the demand supply gap all throughout. When we talk about the A's of healthcare, we talk about availability, accessibility, and further affordability and the accreditation and 5 A's of healthcare that always talked about. When we actually look at developing new healthcare infrastructures, if you look at critically and think about it, how much infrastructure which is already there in the country and it is not being utilized. Even in the private sector, there are many buildings which have been made, partially made, slowly being done, and if you look at populating them, and I know of at least about 8 to 10 hospital buildings in NCR itself, in the private sector I am talking, which are partially built or built and abandoned. At least 10 buildings in NCR itself I am talking about. So if you think at the whole country, there is 1,000 buildings which are there at the infrastructure. On one hand, we are talking of cost of bringing up the new healthcare facilities. On the other hand, there is such a waste of infrastructure which is already existing. Think of the cost of land in those private areas. Think of cost of construction, the structure which is already there. I am presently associated with Venkateshwar Hospital in Dwarka, and in Dwarka itself, I can talk of infrastructure. It's only a subsidy. At least I can talk of 3 hospital buildings which are available there, and I'm seeing them in the same condition for almost a decade now. 1 to 50 bedded PSU hospital, 6, 50 to 100 bedded PSU hospital, 4, 100 to 500 bedded PSU hospital, 6, 500 to 1,000 bedded PSU hospital, 1,000 bedded above PSU hospital. Now, that's the kind of infrastructure which is there at the level of PSUs. I'm not naming any organization because that's not the right thing to do a conference like this. While there was a study being done for PSU, availability of PSU healthcare institutions during COVID scenario, it was found that 80% of these facilities, they are not fit to provide advanced level of COVID care in that district. In fact, this is the complete on record on the data which has been published by the Ministry of Health, that what exactly were number of beds, what was this thing. I think I have that whole data available with me. Of course, I would not waste your time on what should be done, or that that data can be accessed very easily through the websites and otherwise. But at the same time, with that many facilities available across the country, in fact, this is only a partial analysis I am showing to you. The total number of PSU healthcare facilities runs into hundreds for that matter. 2-bedded, small clinic kind of setup, 10-bedded, underutilized, under-positioned, under-proposition. So is that, in a country like ours, where healthcare infrastructure is at premium, we are all the time, struggling at the demand supply gap. On the other hand, we have this PSU. In fact, I am reminded of a meeting with Mr. Gadkari. He called me for a particular discussion in his office, and at that time, he was mentioning about all the port trusts. That at every port trust, we have so much of healthcare infrastructure. We have the land, we have the money, we have everything. Why each port trust cannot be converted to a medical college campus? What is there which cannot be done to convert these port trusts? And ultimately they did try it. I think one of the models was created to convert one of the port trusts into a medical college campus. I am not very sure what the status today, but this is how the conversation started, and Mr. Gadkari was at that time, taking the lead, wanting to take the lead to make it happen. Now, this is where we, the whole thought came up, that why not we look at, all these, problems in such a manner that on the government hospital, on one hand we are talking about treatment costs, 42% people are visiting the government hospital, and 58% over there. The overall diversity, when you come to states and the center and you move out of metro towns, here itself, the moment you move out of Delhi and move 100 kilometers out of Delhi, the level of healthcare you find is entirely different. Dr. Chandrasekhar was talking about Uttarakhand. You just move out and you see. The whole of healthcare of Uttarakhand is located only in two towns, Dehradun and Haridwar. You leave Dehradun, Haridwar, Rishikesh aside and move to all rest of the districts of Uttarakhand, you find absolutely remote situations. So all the A's of healthcare that we talk about, availability, accessibility, affordability, everything goes for a 6. Even if the government or some of these dispensaries and others are providing free healthcare, for a person to reach those healthcare organizations, the amount of money they have to spend on transportation and the stay and everything, that makes the healthcare system unaffordable. So we are forget about we are talking about accredited healthcare, we are talking about all the quality issues and all those things. There even the accessibility and affordability becomes a question mark. And that's where we have to think about it, that all these PSUs, if you look at the locations, if you look at, I have not given a complete detail in the chart, I have only given the distribution state-wise, but if I show you on the map, the locations happen to be at the places where the healthcare infrastructure is absolutely at short supply. You go to Jharkhand, you go to West Bengal, you go to Northeast. There are so many of these centers located in Northeast that their locations make them the most appropriate site for the accessible and affordable healthcare, if that can be thought of. Now, question is that how does we look at this? What are the problems? Why these kind of infrastructure which are there in the healthcare organization, the PHN, the PSU, why they are being underutilized? Why they are not being? In fact, we are sitting in a place like Gurgaon, and let me share with you some of the PSUs working over there, again without taking the name, but real big ones. When we talk to them, हमने 10 बेड का हॉस्पिटल बना रखा है, हमने 5 बेड का हॉस्पिटल बना रखा है. What do you have it over there? Nothing. Those healthcare infrastructures are working only as the referring facilities for the private hospitals. The whole purpose of the service, they see the patient, and after that, it is referred to an empaneled hospital. Their job, putting a reference, and after that, checking the bills and paying the bills. Now, the performance against standards will become very subjective. I've been entrusted to a job for a PPP model where we have been asked to set up the performance indicators or performance monitoring indicators for the partner organization. Depending upon the public partner, the performance indicators that are set up could be as rigid as possible. Giving you an example of Delhi, where the performance indicator monitoring was put up in such a way that indicator was so strict or so severe that ultimately every partner walked out. Not a single partner wanted to stay in that. So that's again a component which will vary from public to public because there are no standard guidelines of that monitoring process. Often you have put something into place, but still it is very fluid. And ultimately, for the private partnership, it has to bring value for money. And as I am telling you that a number of organizations today, their locations, their services pattern is such that it may not add value for money for a partner if it's going to work on a PPP model. While if they're going in for a private setup, they will look at a viability and then enter into it in a manner that they will viability there. And of course, lot of changes in law, more so at the state level because health is a state subject. So these factors or also in the laws governing public sector undertaking will have to be brought into shape to make it. So ultimately, if you look at this just in this chart, you can see that the PPP model is almost inflexibility with lot of flexibility in privatization. The compliances level become very severe in PPP model, while in private model there is a kind of a person has to survive, has to perform, and has to give quality of services for survival. So accordingly, the better patient experience and clinical experience will set in. And once they are into the system, the increasing scope will come into place. Again, it's a viability issue that if I have to survive, I have to be a profitable sector in the private scenario. I will put it accordingly. So these are the advantages, independence from politics, improvement in employee efficiency, more revenue returns, safe passage to the investments, and better service to the patients. I think that's something, in case the PSU can think of a privatization as a method. So ultimately, we feel that between the PPP and the privatization, the time and era has come of the privatization. The recent model which we are talking about, let's look at Air India. From being a PSU to an independent private entity. Think of it if it was a PPP, how it would have functioned. Just an example. Of course, when we are talking about hospital, when we are talking about healthcare organization, in a much smaller way. But at the same time, if we want PSU institutions to be performing to whatever infrastructure level they have been given, we feel privatization is a must. It's a time to go private, time to get away from the shackles, time to make things happen. So privatization as a word economy tends to become one global idea. Privatization as a policy norm seems to go for achieving competitive efficiency as a resource optimization. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that the amount of healthcare infrastructure which is hidden in this PSU is a tremendous resource for the country. Not only that, in the terms of the amount of land bank which is earmarked for healthcare infrastructure, amount of infrastructure which is already existing on ground, and amount of manpower which is just doing clerical jobs sitting in this organization and not doing any clinical work. So ultimately, it has to put into place the resources in the country, the health resources in the country are very scarce, very, very scarce. The time has come that we start utilizing them. And privatization of PSU organization probably is one of the means and the answer to achieve that. Thank you very much.